Here's something that not enough people talk about. Kylo Ren, one of the most complex villains in all of Star Wars, was never really chosen to be evil. He was engineered to be. And I know what some of you are thinking. He killed his own father. He blew up the Jedi Temple. How is any of that not his fault? And look, I'm not here to let him off the hook. But if you sit with his story long enough, the movies, the novels, the comics, what you find is something a lot darker than just a bad guy in a mask. You find a kid who never stood a chance. So today, we're going to walk through the real reason Ben Solo became Kylo Ren. Not just the surface level stuff. All of it. The family secrets, the manipulation that started before he was even born, the one night that broke everything, and why, honestly, the galaxy's greatest Jedi failed him first. Ben Solo was born into the most storied bloodline in the entire galaxy. His mother, Leia Organa, was a princess, a senator, and a general who helped topple the Empire. His father, Han Solo, was a war hero, and his uncle, Luke Skywalker, the man who literally walked into the Death Star and came out the other side, having turned Darth Vader back to the light. That is a lot to grow up under. But here's what makes Ben's situation uniquely tragic, and it's something the novels actually spell out more clearly than the films do. The Skywalker bloodline doesn't just carry fame, it carries darkness. Anakin Skywalker, Ben's grandfather, was seduced by the dark side, slaughtered children, helped destroy the Jedi Order, and spent decades as the Emperor's weapon. That legacy wasn't just history. It lived inside Ben, in his blood, in the way the Force flowed through him, and he grew up knowing it. Now add to that, both of his parents were, by any honest measure, absent in the ways that mattered most. Leia was consumed with rebuilding the New Republic, a galaxy-shaping mission, yes, but one that meant her son often came second. Han, well, Han never really stopped being Han, the restless smuggler who gets uncomfortable when life slows down. Adam Driver, who played Kylo Ren with more depth than the script sometimes deserved, said it pretty directly in a DVD documentary for The Force Awakens. He described young Ben as a kid with these enormous, terrifying Force powers, and parents who were equally as selfish in their own ways, too busy, too absorbed in their own paths to give him what he actually needed. And Ben, according to Driver, felt abandoned. He carried a huge grudge. That word abandoned matters, because that's the emotional foundation that everything else gets built on. Here's where things get genuinely disturbing. And this is the part that the movies kind of brush past, but the expanded canon makes crystal clear. Palpatine didn't wait until Ben was a young man to come for him. He started before Ben was even born. In Chuck Wendig's novel Aftermath, Empire's End, there's a moment where a pregnant Leia reaches out through the Force to sense the child in her womb, and for just a heartbeat, she feels something else there too. A dark, malevolent presence hovering over her unborn son. The presence was powerful enough that Ben actually kicked in the womb. She didn't fully register what it was, and then it was gone. But it was Palpatine. He had already found Ben Solo, and Ben Solo hadn't even taken his first breath yet. As Ben grew up, Palpatine's presence became a constant whisper. The Rise of Kylo Ren comic series, written by Charles Soule, which is honestly essential reading if you care about this character, shows Ben as a young boy having secret conversations inside his own head, a dark voice guiding him, shaping his doubts, feeding his insecurities. And neither Luke nor Leia nor anyone around him had any idea it was happening. Think about what that does to a child. You're already emotionally isolated, already carrying the anxiety of a legacy you never asked for, already wondering why your parents always seem to be somewhere else. And on top of all that, there's a voice in your head, one that tells you exactly what you fear most, that people are afraid of your power, that your family is hiding things from you, that the darkness they see in you means they'd rather you were gone. Snoke was the face of that manipulation, but Palpatine was the hand behind it. The Rise of Skywalker confirms it bluntly. Palpatine tells Kylo Ren that he had been every voice in his head. Snoke was essentially a puppet created and controlled by the Emperor to serve as the thing that would get close to Ben Solo. And it worked. If there's one moment that acts as the hinge point of Ben Solo's entire fall, it's the night at Luke's Jedi Temple. In The Last Jedi, Luke finally tells Rey what happened. He'd been sensing the darkness growing in his nephew for years. One night, unable to sleep, he reached out with the Force and looked into Ben's mind. And what he saw was so catastrophic, a vision of the destruction Ben might one day cause, that in a single terrible moment of fear, Luke ignited his lightsaber over his sleeping nephew. He came to his senses almost immediately. Shame flooded through him, and he powered the blade down. It lasted barely a second, but it was a second too long. Ben woke up, and what he saw was his uncle. The man who was supposed to guide him, protect him, believe in him, standing over him in the dark with a lit saber. Now, here's the layer that most people miss, because the Rise of Kylo Ren comic adds something critical. The darkness Luke sensed in Ben that night, it very likely wasn't Ben's own darkness. It was Palpatine's. The Emperor, who had been a whisper in Ben's head his entire life, may have finally allowed Luke to sense him, deliberately, to trigger exactly this reaction. Luke, confronted with what felt like the shadow of Darth Vader in his own nephew, panicked. He acted on fear, and Palpatine, ever the opportunist, woke Ben up in that exact moment. Ben Solo came to consciousness to find the person he trusted most in the galaxy about to kill him. The uncle who had taken him in, who was supposed to mentor him, who represented the light he had been told to pursue, that man had a lightsaber to his throat. What happened next is almost understandable, if you think about it honestly. He reacted. He defended himself. He ran. And the Rise of Kylo Ren comic goes even further. It strongly hints that it wasn't Ben who destroyed the Jedi Temple. The devastation that killed Luke's other students appears to have been a force storm, the kind of catastrophic dark side energy that Palpatine could summon. Ben was blamed for it. He probably didn't even understand what had happened. He woke up a betrayed, terrified young man with a destroyed life and the blood of people he knew on his hands for something he likely didn't do. And Snoke was there, waiting, with open arms and a ready explanation for everything. Let's be clear about something. At this point, Ben still hadn't fully chosen the dark side. His fall was being actively engineered. Snoke had been probing his mind for years, planting seeds of jealousy, resentment, and doubt, feeding him the narrative that his family was ashamed of him, that the Jedi way had rejected him, that the darkness in him made him more, rather than less, powerful. And after the night at the temple, with nowhere to go and no one to trust, Ben walked straight into the trap. The Rise of Kylo Ren comic shows him eventually arriving at the moment where the last choice gets made. His old friends from the Jedi Temple track him down. Ty, his closest friend, a genuinely good person, approaches him not with a weapon, but with compassion. Ty puts away his saber and reaches out to Ben, trying to pull him back. And it's Palpatine, speaking through Snoke, who delivers the final push. Right in that moment, Ben kills Ty. He kills Vo, another former friend. He takes the Kyber crystal from his saber, bleeds it until it turns red, and forges the crossguard lightsaber we know as Kylo Ren's. And Palpatine's final question, echoing in his mind as the darkness closes around him, what is your name? The name Ben Solo is dead. Kylo Ren takes his place. And yet, here's what makes this character so fascinating. Even after all of that, Kylo Ren never fully became what he was trying to be. He idolized Darth Vader. He had a Vader helmet on a shrine. He constantly tried to finish what you started, grandfather. But he couldn't. Because unlike Anakin, who had made peace with the dark side, Ben Solo never could. The light kept pulling at him. He killed Han Solo partly because he was trying to silence that pull. He told himself that the more darkness he committed to, the quieter the light would get. It didn't work. This is the thing that I think gets lost in the conversation about Kylo Ren, especially when people debate whether he deserved redemption. His story isn't really about evil. It's about what happens when a person is failed at every critical moment. His parents loved him, but weren't there. His uncle meant well, but let fear override judgment at the worst possible time. And an ancient evil had its hooks in him from before he took his first breath. None of that erases what Kylo Ren did, the people he killed, the destruction he caused, the cruelty he chose, again and again. He made choices, but the foundation those choices were built on had been rotting for decades, quietly, invisibly, with no one around to notice it or stop it. What's interesting is that the Rise of Skywalker novelization actually has Leia reflect on this directly. She thinks about the mistakes she made with Ben, how she gave in to fear, how she kept secrets from him. She tells herself that with Rey, she will not make the same mistakes. She will never send Rey away. That line hits differently once you understand the full picture. Ben Solo was sent away, repeatedly, and each time the voice in his head told him exactly what it meant. His redemption, the moment he becomes Ben Solo again, saves Rey on Exegol and dies fighting for the light, isn't a Hollywood reset button. It's the completion of a story about someone who was broken from the outside in, piece by piece, over decades, and who still managed to find the light at the very end. Because Leia reached out to him, because Rey believed in him, because Han appeared to him one last time. And in that last fight, when Ben Solo stormed the Sith Temple to save Rey, he was finally free. Not Kylo Ren, not the weapon Palpatine spent decades forging. Just Ben. So the real reason Kylo Ren turned evil? It wasn't just anger, it wasn't just a bad kid or a spoiled legacy. It was a system of failures, a family stretched too thin, an uncle who flinched at the worst moment, and an ancient Sith Lord who started whispering in his ear before he was even born. Ben Solo didn't fall into darkness, he was pulled there, slowly, systematically, by a force that knew exactly where he was vulnerable. And I think that's why so many people connect with this character, even now. Because we've all felt at some point like the darkness in our life is louder than the light. Like the people around us don't quite see us clearly. Like the path forward has been made harder than it should have been. Ben Solo's story is a tragedy, but it's also a reminder that even after everything, even after decades of darkness and destruction, there's still a way back. If you've made it this far, drop a comment and tell me, do you think Ben Solo's redemption was earned, or did it come too late? I'd genuinely love to read what you all think. If you enjoyed this one, there's a lot more Star Wars deep cuts coming this channel's way. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any of it, and I'll see you in the next one.